Okay, and Foysol Choudhury.
Thanks for that answer, Cabinet Secretary. But EHRC guidance supports my amendments. The EHRC seems to think that not only is it relevant, it is important to clarify for the purpose of cross-border certainty. They say, and I quote, by broadening the group of trans people who will be able to obtain legal gender recognition, the proposal have significant implication for the operation of the Equality Act in Scotland. This significant implication means it is important for us to put as much clarity on the face of the bill as possible.
The clarity on the face of the bill comes from the overarching for the avoidance of doubt amendment in Pam Duncan-Glancy's name, because if you start to pick out differing parts of the 2010 Act, you give more prominence to different elements of the 2010 Act, and that itself just creates confusion and opaqueness. So having the whole Act be beyond doubt, for the avoidance of doubt, is clear. In terms of the operation of the 2010 Act, as I've said on a number of occasions, that's for the EHRC to lead on. And in terms of the cross-border issues that Foysol Choudhury said, just one second, in terms of the cross-border issues that Foysol Choudhury laid out, of course, we are working with the UK Government around a Section 104 order, we will continue to work with them, as we would with any piece of legislation, around any cross-border issues.
Thanks, Convener. Just for the record, I just want to ask Cabinet Secretary, what is your interpretation of the Equality Act?
My interpretation of the Equality Act,
correct, yes.
In its entirety or specifically, or
do you not think that do you not think that it should be more clear? Do you not think that taking removing some for to accommodate somebody else? I mean, do you think that is should it not be balanced? Should it not be given equal opportunity to everybody and listen to everyone?
Well, the Equality Act 2010 does protect the characteristics of sex. It protects the characteristics of gender reassignment. It does. It protects all of those characteristics. I think it's actually a rather good piece of legislation and is entirely untouched by this bill, and I've said that a number of occasions, but we now are literally putting that on the face of the bill for the avoidance of any doubt.
Pauline McNeil.
Convener. Yeah, for the avoidance of any doubt in relation to the briefing, which the Cabinet Secretary particularly think you've seen it anyway, I just wanted to just refer to a specific bit. I think Foysol Choudhury mentioned it previously. So they say, we've highlighted several areas where the effect of the bill's provisions on the operation of the protections from sex discrimination in the Equality Act is unclear, and have urged further consideration before legislative change is made. They refer to all the amendments, including mine and 11101, and all the amendments in the group, but they say that the government, they recommend that such amendments should be considered. So, I mean, given Cabinet Secretary, you're relying on saying, well, it's a matter for the ECHR. I mean, I'd hope that, well, I suspect from what you've said, you're not, well, you've said you're not supporting 101, but I think it's important to get on the record that even the ECHR have said that they should at least be considered, because they themselves would welcome that clarity. So it just seems that it's the Scottish Government that kind of stands alone then saying that you wouldn't accept further clarification. Thank you.
And if we could go to Daniel Johnson, please.
I'm grateful, Convener. So, and I'll just echo Pauline McNeil's point there, but just go further. If we're going to accept your logic, Cabinet Secretary, that essentially that there's nothing impact, and then it's open to public bodies and indeed others to use the exemption set out in the Equality Act, could you just, for the record, clarify that it is where it is proportionate and reasonable to do so, that public bodies and indeed others can distinguish between people on the basis of whether we want to describe its physical characteristics, however we want to capture it. And I recognise that there's issues around the terminology and the difference between legal definitions and maybe commonplace, but that is open, and indeed that they should, where it's fair and proportionate, those distinctions, such as school trips, shared accommodation, or other. You might not want to pick out those particular examples, but that public bodies can and indeed should use those distinctions rather than simply using declared gender identity.
I can absolutely confirm that, because that's what the Equality Act says. And as I've said probably quite a few times now, this bill changes none of the protections and exemptions under the Equality Act. So I can absolutely say that, and public bodies should look to the guidance for the guidance in terms of how they apply that to their own particular circumstances, and it has to be proportionate, as Daniel Johnson has just outlined. So all of that is there, and I can confirm that. The point made by, who was it? Was it yourself, Pauline? You had asked me a question.
EHR's briefing, but it says that they should consider these amendments.
Yeah, so we have, and let me be absolutely clear, we have considered every single amendment, and we've gone and looked at it and whether or not it's required or whether it is not required, and what the effect of it would be on any unintended consequences. All of them, every single one of them. And for clarity, really, and simplicity, by having the protection or the catch-all clarity of Pam Duncan-Glancy's amendment, I think, is the clearest way of being absolutely, for the avoidance of doubt, that there is no change to any aspects of the 2010 Act. And I think to then go further than that, I think actually brings a lack of clarity. And hopefully in my answer to Daniel Johnson, I couldn't have been any clearer around those exemptions that will continue to be the case.
Okay, thank you, Cabinet Secretary. We now move to Rachel.